Welcome to the Let's Talk Growth podcast, where we focus on the topics that can help companies unlock their growth potential. Now here's your host, Bill Hupp.
Hello again and welcome to another episode of the Let's Talk Growth podcast. I'm joined as always by the founder and president of MarketWise's Advising, Mike Haldane. Mike, it's been about 3 months, so wanted to circle back with you and focus on how things are going at MarketWise so far. Things are starting to pick up. The RFPs are rolling in. Just give us a little update on what's new in the world of MarketWise Advising.
Yeah, sounds good. As I started this adventure a few months ago, I wasn't sure exactly what to expect. But as I think I mentioned when we first kicked off the podcast, this is something that I've wanted to do for a very long time, years and decades, in fact. I actually picked the name MarketWise all the way back in the 90s. So this is something I've been thinking about for a very long time. And at some point, it just felt like, okay, this is the time to do it if I'm going to do it. So I did it, and I'm really glad that I did. Things have gone great so far. I will say that a lot of what has been truly fun has been reaching back out to the network and reacquainting myself with some of the folks that I've worked with in the past that maybe I haven't talked to in a while, and catching up with them and their lives and their families and that sort of thing. So that's been a lot of fun. And I will say that the network has been very supportive. I'm reaching out to people as quickly as I can. It takes time, obviously, because over a period of many years, your network grows pretty big. But yeah, it's been a great experience. Several projects that I'm working on, several more that I've bid that I'm waiting on. And then we've taken some steps toward getting on the radar of, for example, the federal government. So I went through the process of being vetted and being approved as a vendor for market research and for marketing strategy and execution for the U.S. federal government. So we now have a cage number, and we can compete with the rest of the vendors on that list for business with any agency, department of the federal government throughout the U.S. and also throughout the world. And the good news is that even some states and counties and cities can participate in that same program and buy off of the GSA, and all the prices are pre-negotiated and contract terms are already pre-agreed to. So it's a really great deal all the way around, and we're very excited to be on that list.
Now that you have had the idea out there, you've got some videos out there, you've done some RFPs. In general, what has the market response been to what you're offering?
It's been very positive. And, what I would say is that if you go back to kind of what we talked about earlier and what I talk about on a regular basis in terms of where we're focused, it's all about growth. But there are 3 pillars of growth that we're specifically focused on. One is market research, the second is strategic planning, and the third is commercial execution. And I would say that while there's a lot of help that's needed with strategic planning, that one requires more conversation. With market research that's outsourced, there's all sorts of work out there for firms like ours that can do market research projects, whether it be qualitative or quantitative or some combination of both. And likewise, there seem to be a lot of gaps in within marketing teams in terms of things that need to get done, but that they don't have the bandwidth for or don't have the expertise for. And so we can help there as well. So a lot of the projects that I'm working on currently have to do with either research or commercial execution. I am working on one project in particular, actually 2 projects in particular, that are more about strategy, mission, vision, values, messaging, that will then lead into more of a commercial execution exercise, because it's going to be about writing content and reworking websites and that sort of thing. And then I'm working on one that has to do with the launch of a new product. It's a medical device potentially that will hit the market. So that one, there's a lot of strategy that goes into that one. So just kind of depends. The RFPs that you mentioned are mostly market research RFPs. So there's a lot of that out there. I could keep myself busy, 40 hours a week just responding to those. So I'm trying to be careful to make sure that the ones that I am responding to are a pretty exact match for what we do.
In your career, did you have a lot of experience with business development, and how is that sort of business development experience informing what you're doing right now?
Yeah, I've always been in a commercial role. Sometimes it's been on the sales side, sometimes it's been on the marketing side. I would say that I've spent the bulk of my career on the marketing side, but I've also had sales roles. In fact, my very first role out of college was with Maytag as a salesperson. The joke was that I was the lonely salesperson. It was really that tagline was meant for the repairman. But I moved 3,000 miles away from home to live in Maryland, and didn't know a single person while I was there. And my territory was part of Virginia, part of Maryland, and I traveled around, every day, every week, and it was a little bit lonely, to be quite honest. So, but I went from there to marketing roles and was in, I've been in marketing roles and strategy roles and research roles. Operations roles, and then most recently with CalSense, I was kind of back to a commercial role where I had responsibility for the sales team, the marketing team, the product management team. I led strategy and some other things as well.
Generally speaking, what has the challenge been like in terms of how to divvy up your time, right? Because when you're running your own company, there's any number of ways you can spend your time in that 40-hour window, so to speak. So how are you spending your time on a weekly basis?
Time is limited, right, for all of us. So I'm trying to be as strategic with how I spend my time as possible. I would say that in general terms, I'm spending about a third of my time on projects. I'm spending probably a third of my time on what I consider to be education. So that would be writing white papers and doing this podcast and building tools for strat planning and that sort of thing. And then the rest of my time is spent on reaching out and making pitches and working on proposals and that sort of thing. It's maybe not an equal split between the three, but generally speaking, that's how I try to spend my week. Each week's a little bit different, but that's how I've been approaching it thus far.
You mentioned the content creation that you're doing. Why are you spending so much time creating content, and why are you choosing to co-develop it with others?
Well, a big part of what I was trying to accomplish from a mission, perspective when I launched MarketWise was to educate. And the reason for that is because I've always been a big advocate of education, but also I felt like, to accomplish what I'm trying to help companies accomplish, there is a big component of understanding, what are the best methods, what works, what doesn't work, what's the right strategic approach, and then how do you execute as close to flawlessly as possible. So I've been writing and co-writing content for that reason. And it's after 30 plus years of doing what I've been doing, there's a lot in my experience set that I would like to share with others. And I kind of got to this, or some of this anyway, when we did the podcast kickoff. But there's a lot that I've learned over the years. Some of it I've learned because I tried something and it worked, and some of it I've learned because I've tried something and it failed, and I had to pick the pieces back up and try to figure out how to make it work, despite the first failure. So, those lessons I think are important lessons, and I would like to share that with as many people as I can. And so that's where the white paper content comes from. It's where this podcast comes from. It's where putting together a process around strategic planning comes from. The various tools that I built to, manage progress and that sort of thing. Those things all come from experiences that I've had at a variety of companies over several decades. And I've been able to sort of pick and choose what I've seen work well versus not. And those are the things that I'm trying to make available to companies that have a growth agenda. And then to surround that with consulting to help them sort of work the process and make sure that they get the results that they're looking for.
Speaking of consultants, can you tell us a little bit about your subcontractor model?
So one of the things that makes MarketWise different and valuable from my perspective is that I can pull from that network of experts. I can pull people into projects that very specifically fit their skill set. So as opposed to a firm that has, consultants that are on the payroll, on the bench, and they get applied to something that may not be a great fit, but it's close enough, I can bring the specific person in that has the exact skill set that's needed for a particular project, and that's the model. So, for now anyway, and this will change over time as we get bigger, but for right now, I serve as project manager, and I serve as key contact, and I serve as a contributor to some of the work that gets contracted. But the model would suggest that I'm also bringing other people in that can help augment my capability, my time, my expertise, so that we can offer the best possible customer experience to our clients by having exactly the right people involved in the projects that we've chartered together.
Pretty hard to be a one-man band and, not only seek the work, find the work, but also do the work yourself, right? So at least from my perspective, when you approached me and you kind of explained your vision, it made complete sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, for right now, I have my hands in a lot of things, but clearly that's not going to be the case for long, because we are picking up projects. This is going as well or better, than I thought it might in the first 3 months. And so, there's going to come a time, I think, in the relative near term where, I'm going to have to divvy up some of that work to subcontractors or others. But again, part of what I've been doing for the past 3 months has been making sure that I've got this network as secure as it can be at this point in time. And I've been pleasantly surprised in that even when I'm talking to people that I worked with years ago that maybe have a full-time job today, but have expertise in areas that I think would be interesting to our clients, when I ask them about, hey, would you be interested in a freelance project where you could work on it a little bit in the evenings and on the weekends, would you have interest in doing that? I think without exception, everybody that I've had that conversation with has said yes. And that's been great, because it means that I can put the very best people, world-class people, on the projects that that I contract with our clients. So it enables me to provide a great service, a great outcome, and not have to do it with with people that wouldn't otherwise be available.
And it has to be reassuring to you on a personal level, right? Because these people wouldn't be saying yes to you unless they believed in you and your vision for what this MarketWise advising could be.
Yeah, I think the mission is important. Just about any company out there needs to grow, and we have the capability to help them do that. But yeah, the vision of how we do that, working with one customer at a time and pulling in the best of the best from a resource standpoint, I think it's pretty easy to get your head around, and people want to be a part of something that is fun to work on, and that is going to have a result that they can look at and say, hey, I was a part of that and I made a difference. To me, that's what it's all about, that sense of accomplishment, and that's something that we're able to offer. As far as the personal part of it goes, I've tried hard to have good relationships with people in every role that I've had at every company that I've been with. And, what that's enabled is a lot of friendships, which I truly appreciate, but also, a lot of coworkers that I think there's a mutual respect for. And so, when I come calling or they come calling, most times hands get raised and people say, hey, I'd like to be a part of that.
Yeah, that's tremendous. And like you said at the top of this episode, MarketWise was just registered as a supplier for market research and marketing services for the U.S. government, which had to be an interesting process, but is a big deal. Why did you go through that process, and what kind of doors might it open for you?
Yeah, it's interesting. I thought about, hey, I wonder if there's an opportunity there, because at GTT and other companies that I worked for in the past, we've been on the GSA, and the federal government element of it is, it's interesting, and it does open doors to other public agencies that are at the state level or the county level or the city level. So I thought, I'm going to check this out and see if anyone is doing market research or needs help with marketing or what have you. And it turned out that there was a pretty big need there. And like I said, I mean, most of the RFPs that I'm seeing are government issued market research RFPs. So I started to see that. I investigated a little bit. I saw, kind of what the needs were. There, a lot of this information is publicly available if you go to the Department of Defense or GSA or just any federal government website that has this type of thing listed. You can pretty quickly see that there's a big need, and so it just made sense for me to pursue this. It was it's an arduous process, but I knew that going in because I've been through it a couple of times before. So I knew what to expect. I dedicated the time. I got through the process. And I have to say, give a shout out to the government. Actually, the process was actually pretty efficient. It's all online now. When I've had questions, the response has been really quick. So I think we've come a long way in terms of the efficiency of that type of process. And then, like I said, I mean, beyond the things that are happening at the federal level, there's a lot happening at the local level as well, and a lot of procurement departments within these agencies allow their folks to buy off of the GSA as well. So I think it enables all sorts of opportunities for MarketWise for anything that's going to be publicly bid.
3 months in, Mike, what are you most proud of, how things have gone so far, and what are some of the other big lessons you've learned?
Yeah, what I would say that I'm most proud of is the progress that we've made so far. So, we stood up a website that I think is, pretty well built at this point. It's got a lot of great content on it. It has tools that you can download and white papers, and gives access to the podcast. It has an assessment of growth readiness. So I'm pretty proud of all of that. I'm also proud of the fact that, as we talked about a few minutes ago, that the network has been as responsive as it has been, both from the standpoint of thinking about projects, but also in terms of being able and willing and wanting to be a part of some of these projects as we go forward. So, those are the things that 3 months in I'm proud of. We've made a lot of progress. We've actually started on several projects. We've got a lot more that are pending. So, from my standpoint, things are going really well, as well or probably better than what I expected they would. So, and this is true of any new business, right? Not just MarketWise, but the importance of continuously being in front of people, reminding them, what you do, what your company does, and why you exist. That helps you build awareness. It helps you build credibility, and in a lot of cases, lead generation. And if it doesn't happen right then and there, if you're in front of people enough, they're going to remember when they've got, for example, a need for market research that, hey, Mike and MarketWise, they do that. I'm going to reach back out because I remember that, Mike's been posting on LinkedIn, or there was a podcast that I listened to that talked about market research, or I read a white paper about it, or whatever the case may be. When I think of marketing promotion, it's really about those three things: awareness, credibility, and lead generation. And that's no different for MarketWise, even though those are the things that we preach. We have to live it too, because they're what makes the difference. I've talked a little bit about this, but the credibility piece is really key. And the reason I say that is because as I think about some of the folks that I've worked with, they go way back, these relationships. They go back as far back as the 90s. And, I had a conversation with a guy that I used to work with back in the late 90s at Intel a couple of months ago. And it was really just to catch up and, hear about his family and hear about what he's up to from a career standpoint and all of that. But he's somebody that I've talked to on messaging and that sort of thing, but we hadn't had a real conversation in probably 20 years. And when we talked, I left the conversation with the realization that for him and for everybody else that kind of fits into that category, I need to be able to tell people that, hey, you knew me 20 years ago for being capable of this, that, and the other. But in the last 20 years or 25 years or 30 years, these are the things that I've been involved with. And therefore, I've developed new skills and, new perspectives, and I've met new people and all of that sort of thing. So, credibility. And this is part of the reason that I've been writing white papers and that sort of thing as well. But, it's important because they need to know you. The people that are in your network need to know you, not just for what you did a long time ago, but what you've done since then and what your current capabilities are. And so, that's a lesson that I learned pretty quickly is, make sure that they're up to speed where you've been and what you've done and what you can offer them, as they think about projects. Um, you know, like any company building a funnel, it's true in the consulting business as well. And again, a lot of what I'm doing from a promotion standpoint is just building a funnel for the future. I'm not a hard pressure, sales kind of guy. I want people to know what I'm capable of. I want them to be aware of what I'm doing. And I want them to think of me when projects come up. So, that's the approach that I'm taking. And as I do that, there are projects that are happening now and there are projects that are happening 6 months or, 12 months plus from now. And that's okay. It's just important to have enough, in the funnel so that over time projects drop out of the funnel and become real projects. And, that enables you to build a foundation of revenue and a foundation for growth. So that's an important point as well. And then I guess the last point that I would make is that I went into this with a belief in myself and of the mission. And I really have not wavered from that. There are certain things that happen that are disappointing, certain things that happen that are exciting. And you just have to know going in that, every day is going to be a little bit different. There are things that are going to happen that, you don't want to have happen and things that are going to be a pleasant surprise. But, you have to know that overall the process that I'm on, the path that I'm on, is going to lead me to where I want to get. And, you just have to have a little bit of faith. And, when we had Brendan on a couple of episodes ago, he talked about how, being naive can sometimes be helpful. And he talked about how he was young when he started Antenna. And he talked about how that was probably good because he didn't know what he didn't know, and he didn't really know what to be fearful of. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. I'm a little bit further in my career as I'm starting MarketWise, and I do know what to be fearful of. But I believe so strongly in what we're trying to accomplish that I just don't let that get in the way. I just wake up each day excited about what we're going to go do, and I make a little bit of progress each day. And, again, so far the signs have been really positive. We're working on projects and, we're bringing revenue in the door and we've got a healthy funnel and I'm enjoying the work and I'm having fun. And so, for me, those are the ingredients to success. And, in terms of big lessons that I've learned, those are some of the things. And some of this I would say I knew, but I hadn't lived yet, at least not at the same extent that you do when you're kind of out on your own and you're trying to launch something new. But there's still good lessons to talk about and think through and internalize.
And think of the lessons that you're going to learn once you start working with clients. Now that you're, starting to work with clients and have projects, there's going to be some key things you learn in that experience as well.
Oh, there's no doubt. I mean, every client and every project is going to be a little bit different. So, I've experienced a lot of different scenarios in my career, but I'm sure there are going to be new ones that come up, and there are going to be things that stretch my expertise that I'll need to bring people in to help with. And that's, again, that's the model. And that what's great about that is that it satisfies the need of that particular client project, but it also educates me a little bit more because now I've been exposed to something new, something that I've not done before. And, that's exciting because, I'm like most people, I like to learn something every day. And so that's one of the ways that you do it. You throw yourself into the fire and you figure out how you're going to figure it out and you succeed no matter what. I remember when I joined Intel years ago, it was pretty intimidating. I was surrounded by, people that were impressive people. And I had my doubts about whether or not I was worthy. And, I just went into it with the attitude of failure is not an option. I'm just going to do whatever I have to do to make sure that I succeed. And I did. And it took me a little bit of time to realize that, hey, I am adequate and not adequate. I am able to do what I need to do to succeed in this role at this company, even though I'm surrounded by very impressive people with very impressive pedigrees and sets of experience and all of that. And it was a great experience, and I learned a bunch, and I did quite well there.
Mike, every company has a set of values that it closely adheres to. What are the values of MarketWise Advising?
Yeah, Bill, I'm glad you asked that question because it's something that I've thought a lot about, and it's really close to me personally. Because really, MarketWise it's an extension of me, and so my personal values need to be reflected in what we do as a company as well. So, the first one is around always doing the right thing, no matter what. Right thing by the company, right thing by the customer, right thing by the people that we pulled into the project. Everybody needs to win. So that's value number one. Value number two is to collaborate closely with clients and partners. And, quite honestly, this is a little bit selfish on my point. And I say that because these relationships that get developed with clients and with, partners, whether it be subcontractors or, people that are doing other things for MarketWise or what have you, they're important to me. I value these relationships a lot. These are people that oftentimes become my friends and, that I do things with outside of work. And, for that reason, this collaborative relationship is something that I put a lot of value in, but I also think it's good for the engagement. If there's a lot of collaboration, communication happening while the project is happening, it just results in a better outcome. The third one is around delivering projects that get results. So again, been doing this for 3 decades plus. I've seen what works and what doesn't work. I don't want to spend time on things that might seem like they're valuable, but that I know and with this discussion, the client knows really isn't going to get us to where we want to be. So I want to be sure that we spend ample time vetting what we're doing, how we're prioritizing things, and that we're only working on the projects that are going to get them the results that they're looking for. So that's value number 3. And then the last value number 4, is to enable the best customer experience possible. We've all had experiences where it's been a great customer experience with a particular vendor and experiences where it's not been a great experience. I just don't want anything to do with an experience that isn't a great one. So I will bend over backward to make sure that, if and when challenges come up, that they get dealt with quickly and in a way that leaves the customer with a smile on his or her face.
Well, I think you're off to a tremendous start with MarketWise Advising 3 months in. So thanks for expounding on how things are going so far and continued success.
Thank you, Bill.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of Let's Talk Growth. If you enjoyed it, feel free to rate and review the podcast. You can get new episodes and listen to old ones by visiting marketwiseadvising.com/podcasts. Let's Talk Growth is owned, produced, and published by MarketWise Advising, LLC.